I'm Zoe Murphy, a furniture and textile designer from Margate. Every month I do a workshop in my studio where visitors can eat dinner that I've made for them and make something creative along with me. But with the pandemic situation affecting the amount we can socialise in the UK, I have to stay at home. Not wanting my friends, family and customers to miss out on creativity and companionship during this period of isolation, I decided to move the workshops online instead. I've carefully designed, hand-printed, composed and packed hundreds of material packs that look fun, are easy to follow and can fit through the letterbox. At a time when we all might feel a bit far apart from one another, no one has to miss out on the Margate Studio nights, and I can share a bit of enthusiasm and instruction through social media live events, colourful parcels and this online tutorial. I hope you enjoy it. Hello, my name's Zoe Murphy and I'm a furniture and textile designer from Margate. Now I've made this video to accompany my Margate Girl drawing kit. It's the second in a series of at-home workshop kits that I've been producing where people can purchase a box just like this and I send them all the materials to be able to take part in creating something at home along with me. Every month I do a live to go along with the kit that's on social media, and I also produce a video just like this one where people can follow along anytime they like to. I've been teaching and lecturing in drawing at universities for many years now, and something I always come across is people saying, I can't draw. They think they're really bad at drawing because they don't create something that looks like a photograph. But if you ask me, that's not necessary. We are here to generate things in our own visual language. We get to put things down on paper that for us represent the way that we see something in the world and actually puts a bit of our humanness into it in order for other humans to look at it and recognise something of themselves in it too. That's pretty noble stuff. We're not here to mirror the world. We're here to represent it in our own way. And that's why I love the wonky and the strange and the slightly off-centre drawings that show other people that we exist, that they exist, and with time and some crafting can be turned into something that we're really proud of and we aim for every time we create something. That is being good at art, and everyone can get there. So be confident and be slow. Changing the tool, the colour, the place in your house that you're doing your drawing, the clothes that you're wearing, the music that you're listening to, the mood that you're in, it's all going to make a really big difference to the art. The instructions that are in this kit and in this video are there to take a bit of the pressure off of you as well, even to take a bit of the responsibility. So have courage, have fun, and if you don't love the one that you've just done, try a different technique. The important thing is that you enjoy yourself. You're going to need some materials to do your drawing today. That's pens, pencils, paper and things like that. And the easiest way of talking through what we need is by showing you the box that I send out to everyone with a kit full of things to do inside it. I make sure these parcels are really fun looking so that when they land on the doorstep, they give people something cheerful to open. I also include a bit of motivation. You have so got this, making everyone feel like they are really, really going to kill it today. So inside the boxes that come with the kit, you get a directed drawing instructions list. That's everything we're going to cover in the video today. And then you also get, inside the nice packaging, a whole mix of materials. A pencil and an elastic band. They're going to help with one of the things we're doing today. A really cool ink brush pen. This is one of my favourite tools. And if you haven't got one of these at home, you could always use a paintbrush and some ink or some watery paint. A wax resist stick. It's similar to a crayon. A really nice thick marker pen that's going to leave a nice, great, big, thick line on the page. And also, of course, a fine liner. So that's going to leave a really nice skinny mark on the page when we're using it. A real mix of lines in our drawing style. Some fun stickers and some colourful masking tape. I always make sure that everyone's got a cool, good at art sketchbook that I've screen printed myself. These have got about 20 or more pages inside them, so you're not going to run out of things to draw onto in one afternoon. Some colourful sticky paper and some tracing paper. You could always use plain coloured paper and tracing paper if you've got them lying around the house. You'll just need some glue. You're also going to need some objects to draw for our drawing lesson. I love to start with fruit. You can get such interesting different types of fruits and vegetables, and there's always some lying around the house. Interesting objects or ornaments, things that have got lots of different surfaces and patterns on them. See if there's any fun toys lying around that would be good to use. Cool glassware that's going to reflect the light in lots of different ways, and anything with a lovely surface. That can be really fun to use and really great to draw. Any kind of heirlooms, weird or cool statement jewellery. Again, anything with interesting textures, nice silhouettes, nice forms. That can be really useful to use when using all your materials to do some drawing. I always love to keep strange party decorations and fun objects that I use on social occasions. They can be really cool to draw. And fabric's great as well because you can fold it in so many different ways. And if it's got a pattern on it, that's going to do a really cool thing when you try and draw it as well. Have a really good rummage around. Find any interesting, strange, cool objects that might be really cool to use for your drawing session. And of course, the old favourite, a houseplant, is really good to use as well. I always like to have a couple of succulents around that I can do a drawing of whenever I need to. And there we go. Pull together a couple of things that you feel would be really interesting for you to draw with a lot of mix of surfaces, patterns, textures, shapes for your drawing session. So now that you have everything you need, let's get comfy and go and fill our sketchbooks in an afternoon. So the first technique I'm going to show you today is one called continuous line drawing. This is like the 101 of drawing at college, because what we're going to ask you to do is take a pen onto the page and draw your image in one long continuous line without removing the pen from the page once. Now this is more difficult to do than you'd think. You can time yourself to do it for 1 minute, 3 minutes, 10 minutes, 40 minutes, it's completely up to you, but it will challenge you to become really spatially aware and not make any marks that you don't really need. So I'm going to do one now for a minute, 1 minute of continuous line drawing. So I'll set my timer for a minute. There we go. And I'm going to draw my object in one, which is this plant that I've got here, in one long continuous line for 1 minute, no removing my pen from the page, starting now. Okay. And oh, my thing slipped there. And as I'm doing this, it might have to be not quite as detailed as I would normally make a drawing. And I know I've only got a minute, so really I've got to try and get those shapes down really quickly. I'm trying very hard to draw what I can see and not what I think this plant looks like. And it's going to be very abstract because I've got to be quite quick if I'm going to generate an image in that really short amount of time. I've got to work my way back around to get in all the other things that I want to draw. And to finish off, looking at the time, I've got about 9 seconds to go. Might go across here, might do a bit of the side. Whee! Oh, I quite like that. Now, if I was to draw one for, say, 5 minutes, it's going to look quite different. I'll be able to get loads more detail in. So should we see what that's going to look like? Okay. So I might do a bit of the shadow at the bottom, but this is me after 5 minutes. And you can see it's really different from the one that I just did. 12 seconds left. What final thing? Maybe a bit of the reflection. Whee! There we go, not bad. So, stop. All right. So that's 5 minutes of continuous line drawing. You can see it's quite a difference, isn't it? I had to really economise on my marks here, but when I gave myself more time, I was able to get a lot more detail in. And that continuous line is really useful because it really forced me to focus on where it was most essential to make the marks and not kind of waste any time going anywhere that I didn't need to. You could try this technique by going for way longer or even speeding it up and deciding to do it in like 10 seconds flat if you wanted to. So the second instruction I'm going to give you today is drawing without looking at the page. Now, loads of these directions. You'll see as we move on, they're all there to kind of twist you out a bit and get you working in new ways. And this is a really good example of them. So I'm going to draw the object. I'm going to make sure I pay close attention to the object, and I'm going to completely ignore this page. Again, kind of imagining that like an alarm is going to go off if I look at it. So I'll draw the object, not look once at the page, and maybe I'll time that for a few minutes to see what happens. Okay, so I've got 1 minute on here already. Let's go for 2 minutes of blind drawing. Right, starting from now. All right, just totally going to ignore. This is going to make a drawing that is really strange and weird. You could do this by putting your object on the table, but putting your notepad or whatever you're drawing onto underneath so you can't see it at all. If you have to take your pen from the page, sometimes you can't find where you've been and you might have to start again. But that can again make for like a really cool, weird, wonderful looking object when you've finished. Oh, there we go. Okay, ready for the big reveal? I quite like that. Oh, so that is like a really, really intuitive, organic response to what I can see here. I've drawn it with real precision, only I haven't been able to see it as I was doing it. So that's quite an interesting drawing. I like that. Okay, so now we're going to do a drawing using just 3 lines. This is quite effective for making you look at the object that you're going to draw and represent its kind of most functional, most essential parts of the form in just 3 marks on the page. It's up to you how long they are, but it's nice to keep them quite short to really force yourself to prioritise what the most important parts of the form are. You could even do a dot at the start and the end of each of the lines to show for yourself that you really have only done 3. Here we go. I'm going to do mine in 3 quick lines. Let's see. So the shape of the container that the plant is in is quite important to its form. So I'm going to do that, blob and blob. And then let's see, I'm going to do the outside. This circle that it all lives in is quite important. And then maybe I'll have a go at all of the outside of the plant. Oh, that's a bit chunky. And now finally, I'm going to do 1 more line. And this has got to really count, hasn't it? Start down here, and then I'll go up here. I'm doing all the ones at the front now. There we go. 1 drawing, 3 lines. Okay, so the next thing on our drawing instructions list is we're going to draw with whichever hand we don't normally write with. Now for me, that's my left hand. It's going to be difficult because I'm not really used to using it, but I think it's going to make some really interesting results. I'm going to try and draw something else as well. So I'll put my plant to one side, and instead I've got a really mushy old bunch of bananas to draw. That's quite interesting. I think there's loads of lovely marks on that. Okay, so drawing with my left hand. Oh, this should be quite funny. Let's see how this goes. All right. So it's going to feel weird to start with, and you're not going to be able to control the marks you're making as well as you normally would. But again, it kind of leads to like quite an intuitive drawing, and quite often it will look like something that, I don't know, a much younger version of yourself would have done. That's because I guess when we're learning to use our hands as a little baby or a toddler, it's always going to be much more, it's going to be difficult, isn't it? It's going to be more of a challenge to control those muscles and to control your hands. So for me, this is making a drawing that's quite naive looking, but that's not always such a bad thing. I'm using continuous line to draw this. Oh, I could take my pen away because I think it might make it a bit easier. There we go. So I've got the outline of my bananas. I think I'm going to try and get some of those like dimples and those shadows in as well. Not using the continuous line. There we go. For a left-handed drawing, for me, this is actually coming out quite good. And the more that you challenge yourself to draw really complex, detailed things, it will look even better and even stranger. And who knows, if you do enough of this kind of drawing, you can end up really, really good with your opposing hand. That's what they call ambidextrous. But me, I am not ambidextrous, so I kind of like what a challenge this is. And that is the point of these kind of instructions. Drawing in a way that you find really difficult at first can render some really interesting results. So let's see, do I need to get any more details? I'm going to probably bring him around a bit more and maybe get a lot more shadow down here. It's a real difficult job drawing with the wrong hand, but I like how it's all coming out. And at the very least, it's honest, isn't it? It's like the backwards version of what I would have usually done. Yeah, I think I like that. I'm going to draw one little line back here. And you know, just like with everything else, if you go really slowly, really gently, you can kind of really carefully craft something that still has an aspect of naivety about it, even though you really take your time. Yeah, I like that. That's really honest. So next we're going to draw only the patterns and the textures from the subject. Now again, this seems really simple to do, but the fact is when we draw things, usually we go, right, well, I'll draw the outline of the object, and then we find ourselves filling in the details afterwards. This time round, you're not going to draw the outline whatsoever. Try and generate the look of the object, have it born off of the page in only the textures and the patterns. You'll find this alone quite a challenge because you'll want to kind of like work out how to draw textures, how to draw patterns, how to kind of discover the marks that are all made on your subject and translate them onto the page. Let's have a go at that. Okay. Now there's lots going on in my banana, so I'm quite happy to do this. There's lots of speckles everywhere, so I'm definitely going to try and generate some of my banana that way. I could also start with plotting some of the shadows and smooth, very, very bruised areas. I like to almost pretend I picked these very, very old bananas to draw because they're so interesting. In reality, I've just bought a lot of them to have in my smoothie. Here we go. And I'm being very careful not to draw any of the outline of the object. I'm just simply going to create based on the textures and the marks of my subject. These are really good, these sorts of instructions, for making you really have to look at what's going on in an object, because you have to generate the whole form just from drawing the textures, which is quite exciting. And that alone is a bit of a challenge as well, isn't it? Because how do you draw a texture? Like if you've got a very smooth surface, it could be a bit of a challenge, couldn't it? That could be difficult. So instead, you'd have to sort of draw the reflections of something. Or for me, the very smooth surfaces on my bananas are going to probably be where there isn't any marking. Okay. Lots and lots of dots on a banana. I think I'm just about there. Not bad. So that's quite a quick effort from me, but I've generated all the patterns and all the textures, and you can kind of see my bananas. I might work into it later with a bigger, thicker line to do the outline, but that's something I'm quite happy with already. Yeah. This is a drawing I did the other day of an entirely different object that was all glass, and I was drawing only the patterns on that. No outlines, but you can still see where the form comes in from the drawing I've done. Tip: draw what you see, not what you think you know. Our brains can hold a lot of information over a lifetime, but we tend to hang on to the very vital things and aren't always good at remembering details if they seem unnecessary. Often we'll have a cultural imprint of what something might look like, and it can be very different to how it really looks. So if you're just starting out, practice the skill of really looking at what you're drawing. 80% observation and 20% translation. All right, so we have done only the patterns and the textures. Now we're going to do the opposite, only the outline. I'm going to get you to draw the silhouette of the object. That means everything that touches the outside of the air around the object, that is the silhouette. We're going to do that in one big line, and I'll show you here. I've got my nice big thick pen, and if I want to draw the silhouette of these bananas, I'm going to draw everything that is the very outline of the object. This is going to make, this is going to make for a much simpler shape than anything we've done already. And I'm going to take my time to sort of draw something that very carefully tries to show all of the outside shape of the object. Here. I'm not going to do any of the details of the inside. Just that outside line. And because there's a little gap there in the object, I might draw that too. There we go. Banana silhouette. I could work into that later with patterns and fill it with colours or paint all the outside, couldn't I? But that is a really simple way of representing the silhouette of the object. Here's another silhouette drawing I did the other day. Can you guess what it was? For this next one, my director's drawing instruction is to draw your object going off of the page. Now, how often when we're faced with something like this, we get really familiar with drawing something straight slap bang in the middle. We're not going to do that. This time I'm going to draw my bananas and maybe a bit of the box that they're on top of. But I'm going to have it stretching off of the page and going off in different directions to really, really fill the area, almost like I've zoomed in on it quite a bit. Okay, so this is difficult for us to do mentally because we kind of get used to having a border on everything. Forget about that. Now we're having border-free art lesson. Okay, so if I'm drawing my bananas going off the page, it's going to start here and go over here. I've really gone in on the scale now. He's going up there. So I'm going to miss loads of the content out, and it's going to give a really different perspective, isn't it? How unusual is that in comparison to everything we've done already? Just do my marks quite quickly. And I'm going to have the box coming in as well, coming in and going out again. Drawing onto my easel quite a bit now. There we go. Maybe I'll even draw in a bit of the background as well. My little paintings over there. And if I take a different pen and fill in some of the detail, there we go. It almost looks a bit pop art, having only some of the object. Changes the perspective loads, doesn't it? It feels like we're really, really close to the drawing and to the subject. take my time and fill in some of the details now. And it's almost like I have to pay quite a bit more attention to those because we're so much closer in to the subject itself. You wouldn't recognise that for bananas at all now, would you? There we go. And what I did earlier with this technique is just like this. So I drew my object in the centre, but instead I decided to draw the rest of the room going off of the page in a different pen. It's kind of cool, huh? You draw a lot of stuff that you weren't expecting then. I like it. So for this next one, we're going to focus on capturing the details of the object. This time around, I'm not too worried about us making something look just like it does in real life. We're going to kind of patchwork together the patterns, the textures, the really, really fine details of the thing that's in front of us. A bit like an image like this, really focusing on the interesting parts of the object and not mattering if they're in the right place or not. So for this, I might need to make my subject matter a bit more interesting. The bananas themselves don't have many kind of like details or surfaces that'd be interesting to draw. So I'm going to decorate it with some jewellery. Setting up my own little still life with some interesting shapes. There we go, bananas. Glamorising you up a little bit. Oops. Okay. Nice. Way more things to draw now. Okay, so I'm going to recreate some of these textures and patterns, but I'm going to do them wherever I like, and I'm going to let intuition kind of guide me around the page. So if I want to create these kind of little frondy parts of my lovely tassely earring that I've got there, maybe I draw this a little bit like that, and they kind of bunch together a little bit. Nice. Now I might draw the metallic top part of the earring, but I don't have to do it in the same place that the tassel is. I might do that a bit more in the middle of the page to a different scale because we're going really abstract now. There we go. Not forgetting the little jump ring there. Now I'm going to do some of those dots that I see on the banana all the time. I'm going to use my nice big thick pen to do that. And I might fill the gaps in here. Now the cool thing about tools like this is, and any of the tools that you've got in your pack, you can probably use each one more than one way. So if I turn the nib of my pen around, I can get loads of different marks and different patterns going on. Now a lot of the lines on the bananas are made up of dots, so maybe I'll do some dots in lines and just kind of intuitively feel. And also there are lines going in amongst some of the dots as well. This is the tiny, tiny patterns that I can see on the banana. You can't, but I can because I'm pretty close to it. So I'm going to draw these here and make for a really nice, interesting, abstract representation of all the marks on the banana. Now I've got this really cool kind of plait going on my threaded necklace that's here. So maybe I'll do that coming in over here. And carefully draw that. And because I'm drawing the texture, I don't necessarily have to do the right form, so I'm just going to kind of replicate it around my objects that I've drawn already. Okay, now maybe I'm going to want to do the other tassel. I could have that going on over here. And perhaps I could draw it again with a different tool over here. Different scale. Look how different that looks from the original. And there's loads on this, so I could just keep drawing lots. We've got some really, really kind of fibrous top parts of the banana there. A big dark mark there. And maybe I'll go in some more of those banana dots because I do love them. But I'll use a different scale of pen to do that. I think that'd be quite cool. And finally, maybe one more time, in super big, I'll draw another texture, more of these plaits, but this time I'll do them as a big shape coming in here. For just a small number of objects, there really is so much to draw on one little still life. If you focus on something really different than the drawing that you did before. Okay, I quite like that. Loads of different textures, patterns, everything that I can see in this small little space. And although it doesn't look like a bunch of bananas wearing jewellery, it's kind of cool. I like it. The next instruction is quite a difficult one. My students, when I tell them to do this, always find it a bit of a challenge, but I think it's really effective for learning how to use your tools and your mind in a really different way when you're creating. I'm going to swap out my subject matter again. Buy for the moment bananas, you're going to live over there. And we'll put our nice, interesting silhouette plant back on the stand. Because now we're going to be painting the negative space of the subject. That means everything that isn't the object. Now, a lot of the time when I give people instruction to do this, they grab their tool and they get busy drawing an outline and filling in the outside. That's what painting the negative space is. We're going to generate everything that isn't the object in some ink. But that's easy to do, isn't it? You draw an outline and then you colour in the area outside it. I don't want you to do that. I want you to take a tool like your brush pen or maybe one of your thick marker pens and literally draw the outside of the object. Fill with colour the space that's touching the object around the outside of it. A bit like this one here that I did ages ago at a very fancy museum near to us. And I've got another example here. Painting the negative space. And what I didn't do was create an outline and fill it in. Instead, I used my brush to very carefully travel around the outside of the object. This is a nice big lamp. To travel around the outside of the object and to take real care to colour in all the air that I could see around it, imagining I almost wasn't considering the object itself. But you'll see that when you finished it, the shape of your subject is born out of that negative space. It's really cool. So we'll give that a little go with my cool potted plant. So I'm going to use my inky brush pen for this. These are all supplied in the packs that I've sent out to everyone. Ooh, and it's going to get real messy because I'm going to try and do this upright on my easel. You'll have an easier job if you're doing this at the kitchen table. So I'm focusing on all the air that's on the outside of the object and painting only that instead. Here we go. It might come out totally different proportions either side, but at the very least I think it's a real honest drawing. Ooh, and if I get it really inky, so I'm going up there, painting only the outside. He's coming up there a bit. It's really nice to make these extra drippy as well when you do it. Now, being a plant, this has got loads of little bits going in and out of it that are actually quite hard to represent. And it's almost like, I kind of like this technique for really challenging your perceptions, because I'm almost treating the air around the subject as if it were an object itself and I'm painting that object. You could even do this by actually drawing all the things that are in the air around the object. I can see pieces of fabric, portraits of Kim Kardashian I've got back there. They are all really cool to paint, and then ignore the subject and make that kind of be invented out of that space. There we go. Oh, love that drippiness. I'm really seeing what shapes the space in between the aspects of the plant really are. And it's kind of different to what you'd expect. Somehow it can often be easier to draw an object by drawing what isn't there than what is there. And this makes for really lovely silhouettes as well. And up here. And I can feel it's probably not even going to really be quite the right size or shape, but I feel like this is a really true representation of my experience of coming into contact with this subject. And at the end of the day, isn't that what we're doing in creating a piece of artwork? People might say, oh, well, what are you painting a plant there? I say, no, no, no. I was painting all of the space around the plant. Whoops, drippy, drippy. Okay. I kind of like that. I kind of like that. Do we think it looks like a plant? It certainly looks like all the space around a plant, that's what I reckon. And one of the things you could do once this is all dry is actually then draw some of your details into it. That's the beauty of all the silhouette practice that we're doing. You could take your fine liner or one of your thick pens and use that to kind of sculpt all the inside. Why not apply the technique of drawing only the patterns and the textures to this one now? Who knows? Mix it up, see what happens. Now we're going to do a technique where we change our mark making tool, that's the pen or the pencil, whatever you're using, every 30 seconds. You could time yourself to do it for every 2 minutes. You could time yourself to do it for every 1 second or 10 seconds or something like that. But either way, we're going to mix it up enough to make some really interesting drawings. Here's one I've done before where I've used all different weights of line, different tools to make my drawing. And another one here where I just change the pen every 30 seconds. I think there are about 4 or 5 going on in here. Today I'm going to use 4 and we'll see how we get on. So I've got my timer here. I'm going to go for 30 seconds, starting from now. All right, so I've got a nice thin line to start with. So I can do some lovely little details, do some really cool little straight lines, and focusing on getting some really lovely aspects of my cacti going on. My little succulent plant, he's doing quite well because I water him every day. Little buddy, my little drawing muse. Okay, so now I'm going to pick up another one and start. So now an entirely different tool is coming in. My lovely thick pen. Makes for a really different mark, and my hand is going to kind of use the tool in a different way. Okay, so I'm going to use my ink pen, get some of this lovely vase shape in. Whoops. Drippy, drippy. And this is a nice part of it as well. Cool, and maybe I'll actually try and get some of the reflective nature of the, okay, sneak in a little bit like that. Woo! Oh, it's stressful, stop. Okay, and now I'm going to choose one more tool. I think I'll use this thick pen and start 30 seconds finally now. Okay, let's get some more of these coming in. And then I think I'll get more details coming into here. Some back there. There we go. All right, I quite like that. Loads of different textures and different types of marks going on because I've changed my material up every time. Now what we're going to do is we're going to try and fill our page with pattern and texture. It doesn't have to just be from the object. We can have it from all around the setup as well. Okay, so I'm going to use a few different tools, a few different mark making, and I'm going to busy myself with just creating some surfaces and some interesting marks. I'm going to try and make these as abstract as possible. So they're not even going to look too much. Here I'm doing the little spines of my plant, but I'm doing them really big and really linear. And when I say patchwork, it doesn't have to be in squares. For this, I'm just going to kind of start and stop when it feels right to me. I could grab my ink pen now. Oh, and I think I'll do the swags of the fabric that's behind it. I want to get all the ink all over me. Okay, lovely fabric textures there. We've got a nice line of it going there. Oh yeah, I like that. Nice. And if somebody said to me, is it going to be immediately obvious what you're drawing? Probably not, but I know. And I quite like how textile designy this one could potentially look. All right, so I've got lots of lovely brush bristles over there, so I might create a load of them coming out the top of there. I've even got some of it going into and filling up the texture that I was just working on. Like that. Now I'm probably going to turn my page upside down. Let my ink run around a bit. And I can get busy doing some of the polka dots that I can see on that piece of fabric there. Nice and quick. And I don't even think it matters if I fill up the whole space. It's just kind of whatever feels like a nice place to stop and start. Oops. After all, we're the ones in charge, aren't we? You and I, we're the artists. And if it feels right to start and end in a certain place, I think that's okay. There we go. Let's see what else. Oh, I'd quite like to draw the dirt that's in the pot, so I'm going to have a go at doing that. Lots of little dots of dirt. It really lays on top of itself. Lovely little grains. Now imagine how detailed these would be if you spent a really, really long time doing it. You could do a drawing like this for a whole hour. Imagine how wonderful and complicated and detailed and rich in pattern and texture that would be. And also in the pot, the soil, when it gets to the edge, it kind of thins out a little bit as it splatters up the sides. So I might do a bit of that. Cool. And finally, on the pot next to my plant, I've got my stationery and I've got a load of elastic bands, so I'm going to have a go at drawing them as well. All hanging down the side. There we go. And all the little edges. Nice. That's an extra big one. There. And then He comes in there. Gorgeous, look at that. You'd never know, would you? You'd never know that that was a little still life in my living room. Tip: listen to your intuition, the little voice in the centre of you saying paint it blue or cut it in half. Intuition has some good ideas that often make sense later. Getting really messy now. So we're going to do a drawing with the masking tape next. I've supplied a little colour tape in every single one of the kits. So you want to grab that and we're going to do a drawing with it. And we're not going to do anything with the pencils, anything with the pens. Instead, I want you to try and generate it using only the tape. Easy, right? Let's give it a go. So I could either tear bits off to cut the tape, or maybe for some parts, oops, I could try bending it instead and doing creases in the tape to get the shape that I want. But either way, it's quite a retro process because everything ends up being in like really straight lines. Because of course, tape really is only in straight lines. All right. Now, I could take a really, really long time to do this. I'll do it nice and quick because we're in demo mode. But you could take a lovely amount of time carefully drawing your design with lots and lots of little bits of tape. Oh, I don't like him. I'm going to cut that little bit off. There we go. It's almost like a kind of collage. Using only straight lines or ones that I've kind of crimped and creased to make my drawing. There we go. All right, it's simple, but it works. A really good way to change up the look of some of your drawings is to change the scale. It's like one of the quickest ways of doing it. And it makes a big difference which tool you're going to use for your drawing as well. So if I was to do a really, really tiny, tiny drawing with this big, thick pen, it's going to look really different to if I do it very, very, very tiny with a fine liner instead. So try them out and see what happens. I'll do a very, very quick drawing of this plant using my ink pen and see what happens. I'm going to go for like 10% of the scale that I would do, and it can be really nice to generate something where you fill the whole page with these little studies all at different sizes and using different materials. So we all know what this looks like when I draw it really big with this pen, but if I draw it really tiny, what's that going to look like? It's going to end up being much more of a kind of almost like a logo or something like that. Very, very simplified because it's so small. And you can also have a go at drawing them and then shrinking it down again if you want to as well. I mean, I've done that one. What happens if I go even tinier again? Could be weird, couldn't it? Look, wee! A wee little one. Super, super tiny. Oh, that's lovely, so cute. Yes, now let's try the same technique with the fine liner and see if it looks any different. I'm able to get a bit more detail in with the fine liner here, and I'm combining it with a bit of continuous line drawing. Sometimes I will design a lot of my own work this way. I'll make it very, very small with a fine line pen, but then I'll blow it up really big and it'll make a huge difference to the way it looks. Equally, you can make very detailed drawings by drawing them huge and then shrinking them down on the computer if you're ever going to use them in a piece of your own work. Then they look really detailed, even though you drew them really big and really kind of abstract in the first place. There we go. So sweet. And I might do quite a few of them on the page, get quite nice results. The next drawing we're going to do is an overlapping drawing. I'm going to take one that I did earlier and I'm going to do another one over the top. But I'm going to change my subject matter at first. So we'll get rid of our succulent for the moment. Thanks, succulent, doing a great job. And instead, I'm going to put my plinth back up, aka the box. And we're going to put some bananas on. These are getting more beaten up every time. I kind of like it. Oh, these poor little guys. Okay, so I'm going to draw my bananas over the top of the drawing of my plant. I could put it anywhere. I could put it like here. They could be right smack bang in the middle. They could be so big that they kind of overlap. But I think I'll kind of put them down here as if they were actually in the picture with the plant pot. It's a good idea to pick a different tool when you're doing this. So I'll go for the nice big thick pen for this one. Okay, and it doesn't need to be too quick. I could take a long time to do it, but I think instead I'm just going to do a little continuous line drawing of my bananas. Nice and abstract. There we go. And when I'm doing this, I'm almost completely ignoring the drawing that's underneath. I think that's quite a good way of doing it, because then you're not worrying too much about going over the top. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I think you just got to go for it and see how it turns out. Get some of that lovely banana detail in. There we go. And if you're worried about ruining one of your drawings by going over the top of it or experimenting with it, I would say don't worry about it, but you could always have a go at maybe photocopying some of those drawings, taking photographs of them before you edit them and saving them for later. It's okay. All right, I've just finished making a new tool. I've attached my pen to the end of a very, very, very long pen, or you could use a pencil with elastic bands in order to create an extended tool. And I'm going to draw with this, but I'm not going to use the end of the pen like this, like I would normally do. Instead, I'm going to hold it at the very tip. It's going to be harder, but I'm interested to see how it turns out. And that's kind of the point with these instructions, isn't it? We're always trying to mix it up, throw some curveballs in to make the directions a bit difficult to see how the work comes out. Sometimes you can really like it. Okay, so I'm back to drawing my bananas again. And I'm going to try and draw with this very extended tool. I think the lines, oh yeah, the lines are going to be really wibbly wobbly now, aren't they? Oh my goodness, I really like this. Whee. And again, even on challenges like this, even when you're looking at it and you're like, this is crazy, you should still always try and draw what you see and not what you think you know. So I'm just going to be really honest about what I'm representing here with my mark making. Make sure I'm always looking at the subject, especially at times like this when nothing's really coming out like it should. So actually, it's even more of a license to really focus on what you're creating. This is one of these drawings where it would look like someone who didn't have a lot of control over their hands or was just learning how to use them like a little kid would create, but I kind of like it. If you ever wanted to do some naive art, this would be one of the ways of doing it, wouldn't it? Oh yeah, that's cool, I like that. Okay, so now to get some of the details in. It's hard to do marks with real conviction with this technique. So everything you do, it kind of works better with lines. And it has this real shakiness to it, but I kind of like it. One of the great things to do when you're doing a technique like this is come back in with something that's like a really solid mark. So you could do the silhouette afterwards, or you could come in with your brushy pen and make something interesting that way. Da, da, da. There we go. Anything else? Ta-da! Tip. I don't believe in marking things out with pencils, so don't use yours. Drawing 20 sketchy scribbly lines in the place of one, or rewinding with an eraser, doesn't teach you very much. Your creativity will flourish faster if you have to commit to things and are taught to create with purpose. There's always more paper. The next instruction is to draw with only a pair of scissors. No pencils, no pens, no marking anything out beforehand. I've included some sticky paper in every single kit that I've sent out, so you can use this to essentially do collage, but it's a lot easier than using all that glue. So, whoops. I kind of like this one for doing big blocky silhouette shapes. I'm going to generate the bunch of bananas using only a pair of scissors and this sticky paper. There we go. It's handy, I need to keep sort of holding it up to check what I'm managing to create shape-wise. Oh yeah, that looks great. It makes for a very retro look as well because it's all very angular. There's a little bit up there I need to cut out. It's all very angular and very sort of 1950s, lots of sharp edges. If you do a bit of research, you can find some really fantastic artists who use collage in all of their work. There we go. I like that. I'm going to go with that, sticking that down. Oops. Oh, that's cool. And I could even use some other colours to sort of cut some extra detail into my collage. Okay. Whoops. I don't love that there actually. I'm going to put that there. You make a totally different kind of mark when you're using a pair of scissors as well, because you can't get the detail that you can with lots of drawing lots of lines. If you were to try and cut all of those lines out with a pair of scissors and this sticky paper, it would take you forever. So again, any opportunity where a task forces you to economize on the amount you're doing makes for a really different look, and you might really love it. There we go. Lovely bunch of bananas. Yeah. Now that we've drawn only with our scissors, we're going to carry on using all the negative space from those bits of collage. And the longer you take to do it, the more interesting they are. Look at that. That's still a really valuable shape. So we're going to use the offcuts from our last drawing and we're going to stick them onto the page to make another one. And again, as usual, these don't have to go where they would normally go. We don't have to try and build a banana. Oh, this one's quite stretchy, hang on. We don't have to try and build a banana from our scraps. I think it's just fun to see what happens. Oh, and I'm really seeing what happens here. Okay. Oh, this is really stretchy. There we go. Looking nice. You can see our little banana ghost coming through. There's one bit. Might try some of my red now. Now, where do I want to stick this one? I might have it coming in here. Oops. Oh gosh. This sticker paper is something else. Oh look, it sort of decides where it's going to go. There we go. Well, he's obviously going there. Yep. Okay. Oh, I like that. The art deciding what it's going to look like. And I got my one final little bit here. And the great thing about this sticker paper as well is you can sort of move it around and decide where it's going to go before you put it down. Oh, I like that bit there. Oops. It's kind of like all bits of banana are being formed out of everywhere. And then I've got these tiny bits left over that were cut out from the inside of the banana. Quite often when I do this technique, I actually prefer this to the one I did before, but I never expect that I'm going to. Maybe if I put him, oops. He's going there. It could almost resemble a very expensive art piece that you'd see in a gallery. But in the end, all it was the bits that someone else would throw away. I like that. Yeah, really cool. And sometimes you might like to draw over your scraps. This is one I did before, where I took all the negative space that I'd used in the collage, stuck it down, and then did some little drawings over the top, drew the patterns and the silhouette from the banana. And here's a similar one that I did using a plant from earlier. All the offcuts and a nice drawing over the top. So that is drawing using only the scraps. The next in our series of directed drawing instructions is going to be tracing from a photograph or from a picture from a magazine. Now, this isn't something I would normally recommend to students. I don't think it's great to trace stuff because you rely on the image that's there already. But we're going to do this in a really creative way. So I need a picture or a photograph, but I've got one to hand. So I'm going to use, yeah, why not? I'm going to use this painting of Kim Kardashian that I bought at a local boot fair. I'm going to put my tracing paper over the top and probably just peg it in place for now. And you'll be doing the same. You'll be doing the same with the drawing you've got. And now I'm going to choose some elements of the drawing to recreate. It's actually a picture that someone's painted over. I'm going to probably do a silhouette and maybe I'll do some of the facial features, but I'm going to make them really, really simple. So I'm going to use, I'm going to use my big thick pen to do that. Maybe I'll do the outline around her. And you can choose which elements you're going to recreate. The great thing is with tracing paper as well, you often can't see all of the object through the trace. So instead you kind of have to make up bits. You have to decide which bits you want to generate. And those decisions are yours and they are artistic choices that you make that kind of get you to take a bit of ownership. So if you're ever doing tracing, making sure that you're still generating something really original and you don't need to worry about the fact that you're kind of replicating a photograph. You're birthing something new out of it. Okay, Kim, what we're going to do, let's do some nice big eyelashes on you. There we go, going to get the eye going on. Maybe a bit of that. And I'm going to draw the rest of her facial features, but in really simple marks. Oh, I'm glad she's not probably going to see this because I don't think she'd love it. There's Kim. I'll do her lips with something else. And then maybe I'll do this nice big outline that she's got around her head. And her body, but I can choose to kind of go off in a different direction with it. Maybe I'll have that one going down there. All right, I like that. And let's see what happens when we get the ink involved as well. I've no idea how this is going to react on the tracing paper, but it's quite exciting to see. So, okay, going to do a bit of her hair with the ink. Oh, it's really puddling. I'm going to like this, I reckon. I love working with these brushy pens that I put in the kit. I made it my mission to make sure they were included because they make such great marks. You can kind of give them a little squeeze and the ink comes out. You can make really fine lines like this bit here, or you can make really thick watery ones as well, which is really cool. Okay. Oh, I love that ink separating on the tracing paper. And now I'm going to do her lips And maybe I'll do a bit of contour on her face as well. Okay, ooh, what is that going to look like? Let's get some of these patterns in around here. Nice. And maybe I'll even bring in one last pen to do some of these other shapes that I've got going on her clothes. Okay. All right, Kim. I think you have been officially traced. This is the exciting part because you don't really know what it's going to look like until you take the tracing paper off and you hold it against a white background of your own. Oh, I sort of like that. What do we reckon? There we go. Making sure that when you trace, you pick out stuff that you think is really original and interesting for you. It's all your choice, so you know that you're being quite artistic with it. And see what you come up with. Do some cool family portraits. Now we're going to draw with a mood in mind. So think angry angles or fluid, floaty forms or happy clouds or fast, jazzy music. All of these things might change the way that we feel when we're generating the work. So with some of those moods in mind, think about how it might affect the marks you're going to make and what the outcome would look like and how it would be different. I'm going to think of fluid forms and draw these bananas and see what happens. So fluid forms to me means lots of lovely, relaxed, swoopy shapes. Maybe they just lift off the page really lightly. I like that. Fluidity as a banana. Oh, love it. Oh, I'm really enjoying this one. Go banana. Yes. That is a chilled out banana drawing, isn't it? I really like that, she said, sounding all surprised. Bananas as a fluid, floaty shape. Yeah. Okay. Now, if I was to add in some marks, oh, this will be the one that felt really angry. I might try and pick like one of the really dry pens and generate something that felt really aggressive. How might that look? Let me think. Probably going to be really, really sort of brushy and coarse with lots of jagged edges. So let's have a go at that. Angry, angry shapes on my banana. Ready, go. Oh, angry banana. It's probably going to still look really good. Ugh. No, no, no. In a terrible mood. Bananas, unhappy bananas. Probably very unhappy because Zoe hasn't eaten them yet. And they're made, destined to be in blender. Whoops. You know, and the whole piece might actually have some real dramatic shapes going on, making up some of the forms. That's really changed the mood of it, hasn't it? Nearly scrubbed it right off the page. Yeah. Fluid forms to angry, aggressive shapes. It's different. See what you can do with yours. Tip. Try changing it up. The tool, the scale, the paper, the colour, the music, the mood, the location, the object, what you're wearing or where you're sitting, the time of day, how close you are to the page. All of these things could affect the way you're creating. So if you don't like your work, try changing up one of these. I've made a new tool with my elastic bands. I have actually attached two together so they're right next to one another to make a tool that's going to put 2 marks on the page at any one time. So here we go. If I draw my bananas now, I'm going to get some sort of kind of mirroring effect from the marks. This is quite exciting. See what happens. Okay. Oh, yes, I like this. It's kind of like an offset shape. Oh, very, very 1970s. Look at this. I'm actually enjoying it so much I'm not really looking at what I'm drawing. Yeah, I like that. And which one do you watch at any one time? That's the thing as well. Ooh. Okay. And then create a bit of the shape up there. Oh, I like that a lot. And what happens when I get some of my banana marks in? It's almost like you can double up on the speed of your drawing. What happens if you put 2 pens together? What happens if you put 5 pens together? Who knows? But that's for you to find out. If you like the look of this one, it could definitely be one to try. Oh, and even if you don't love the drawing, a lot of the time it's a lot of fun to do. So I think now we're going to draw using only the simplest, most basic block shapes of the object. Almost imagine you were only going to draw it in kind of like bricks, or you were going to draw it out of triangles or circles. Really, really simplify the forms in your subject and put them on the page. See what it looks like. So if I'm drawing my bananas, these poor old beaten up bananas that I've done a million times, I can see there's quite a few shapes in there. We've definitely got like a sausage shape going on with the banana itself, like this. And then there's another shape at the end, which is a circle. Got some rectangles going on at the end of each one. And they join together at the top. And then the banana in the background kind of becomes a triangle there and pokes out like a bit of a triangle as well. Another disc going on down there. And then even the patterning, we'll just do another bit there. This almost becomes a bit cubist, a bit like something Picasso would do. And now, if I even do some of the detailing of the banana in lots of simple shapes, all the shadows are going to become rectangles or triangles. It'll make for some really interesting types of drawing. There's a great big bit there. Yeah, I feel like we're doing a lot of the eras in all of these. This could be a real Memphis 1980s design. Oops. There we go. One banana, or a whole bunch of them broken down into its most simple forms. Easy. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a drawing using only straight lines and dots. Formerly we were doing just block shapes. Now we're going to create something only with one of those two. So my bananas are going to be represented, oh, this will be interesting, only with lines. Okay. And if I do it just with dots, that's almost like a kind of pointillism. I think in this drawing I'll do a bit of a mix of both. Oh, I'm liking this one. Very simple, isn't it? It's almost like the drawing with tape. Yet me bringing in the dots means I can add a lot of detail. What am I doing with this? So here we go. Lots of dots to create some of my lines. And that's quite the exciting thing as well. What if you use dots to make lines? What if you use the lines to make dots? You can kind of like mix them up to generate some really interesting things. So if I want to do my dotty patterns but with little lines, it would look a bit like that. Maybe do some shading in the background using just the lines. I take this pen. So we've got cross hatching to create shadow. I could do a bit here as well where there's some more shadow. Darkening up the areas using lines that cross one another. And then pointillism is going to create some of the shapes by doing lots of dots. Interesting. Yeah, that's a very, very cool little pair of techniques that we've put together to create a really, really abstract version of my little banana-y still life. Now we're going to use the wax stick that's in all of the packs. It's kind of like a crayon, but quite a lot of them don't have any colour or they're white. And we're going to use that wax resist stick to draw onto the page a ghost image. We won't be able to see it until we've washed some ink over the top. You could either do this by just spreading loads of ink over the top of the drawing that you've done to make it reveal itself, or you could even try and paint a drawing of the object over the top of the one that you've just drawn with the wax. So I'll have a little go at drawing my bananas. Oh, and I can't see what I'm doing at all, so it's kind of cool. I'm going to really get some good, real resistance going on there, like loads and loads of marks. I don't even know if I'm drawing in the right place, which is kind of cool. And I've drawn these bananas so many times now today. I could almost do it blind. Okay, that's my banana shape, I think. I always feel like I don't put enough on the bottom, so there we go. And now I'll just get some of the marks going on in there as well. All right. Now, I'm going to paint the bananas over the top with my ink. Oh, look at that. Oh, that's fantastic. The drawing is revealed. I've got to be careful to keep drawing my bananas. There I am drawing my banana. My lovely beaten up, bruised smoothie bananas. And look at the design revealing itself on the page. All that lovely detail. Oh, I kind of want to leave it like that. This is the point when I would take a photograph. Oh yeah, that's great. Let's try and do a bit over here and not ruin it. Oh yeah, look at that. Pretty special. Yeah, that's cool. Oh, and the design is really different. Okay. Yeah, I think I'll leave it like that. The other way of revealing it is I could take a different colour paint or ink and I could then fill the spaces in around it. And there's more of my banana going on. Yellow would have been quite good to use on my bananas, wouldn't it? There we go, filling in all the negative space. And you can see more of my patterns being revealed in those areas. Nice. Oh, got a bit of my green mixed in. Cool. Yeah, that is a cool technique. Using wax resist to generate a ghost image that you then reveal with your ink over the top. Tip: have yourself some heroes. Take a look around and research and investigate some artists and designers who you love the look of the work of. Think about how maybe they've done it. Look at the skills and the techniques that they've employed to make their work and have a go at trying some of those things out with yours. Okay, so I've filled a page with some ink because I'm next going to be drawing over the top of a page that I've colour washed. It makes for an interesting background, and sometimes drawing onto white paper can be a bit intimidating, or it certainly makes you feel different about the things that you're drawing. Messing it up, getting loads of stuff down on the page first can really loosen you up a little bit. So there we go, that's what I've done. I've done it really abstractly. It's nothing to do with anything that's going on here. But now I'm going to draw the objects here, nice and quick. There's the bananas again, over the top, in a nice continuous line. And it's going to look entirely different because of the background that's there already. I'm going to get some of my little stand in. And the lovely brush that's going on here. You can get real serendipity as well, because actually sometimes the marks you've made on the page might relate more directly to the objects that you're drawing on it without you realising. So here, this nice big circle of yellow that's going on actually kind of matches up with the brush that I've just drawn. Cool. Okay. Colour wash and a drawing over the top. All right, we're on the last instruction now. Well done, you've done 25. Have you got any room left in your sketchbook? Probably not. That's where the spare paper comes in. I have drawn a lovely inky, washy silhouette shape on the page, and I'm going to be drawing over the top of it to add the detail in with a pen. So again, this one's a bit of like prep and then let it dry and then draw over the top. And that way you can get some lovely details in with a great block colour on the background. Once again, I've done my bananas in colours that are kind of quite appropriate, and I'm going to draw some of the fantastic banana-y shapes in over the top. And I don't necessarily have to make it exactly the same shape as my outline. It's kind of up to me. It can be quite nice to have two different sort of forms going on top of one another, being slightly offset. There we go. Banana, looking good. Get some of those shapes going on. And then one more over there. Oh, I really like this last one. Okay, I won't put too many details in. I feel so used to drawing these bananas now, but every single one of these drawings is going to look so different thanks to all the techniques that I've used today. Okay. All right, there we go. Silhouette underneath with ink, pen over the top once it's dry, a brand new picture, looking all different from the others. Well done, guys, we're done. You've done 25 different techniques today. There'll be something in there that you love, and you can mix them up with one another, use different tools to the ones I have, and find your own groove. Now, don't forget that once you finish a drawing, it's not the end of it. You can go back into these and work into them with some of the other techniques. I'll show you some of those now. So we've made some brilliant work today. You've done loads of new drawing techniques, and I'm even going to show you a couple of things that we can potentially do even after you've finished. Ways of mixing them up, making some new designs. You need to have a little look through and find some that you think might be appropriate to edit. Perhaps it's the ones that you felt could have had a bit more into them, or you don't love them as much. They're always a good one to start with. Generally, you're always going to have ones that you prefer and ones that you don't. Have a little look through what you've done already and pick out some ones that you think could use a little edit. You could fill in the negative space of one of your drawings. This means you pick an area that hasn't got any pattern, and you're going to draw attention to it by taking something like a big brushy pen with some ink or some paint, or maybe you're going to use your biggest, thickest marker pen, and you're going to fill the area with paint, colouring it in and creating a real new balance to the design by doing that. So usually we're used to seeing something in the middle of the page, smack bang in the middle, kind of like framed with all the white space around it. Well, now you're going to paint in some of this white space and see what that does to the design, how it kind of rebalances it and changes the look of the whole drawing. Now it's going to look like you've painted something that probably goes off the page. And it can make a big difference which area you select to paint in as well. Look for something that's got some interesting shapes that could have colour painted in around it. When I do it, I tend to make sure that I always have a little white border around the edge as well. It's quite a stylistic look, and it means that you can always see really clearly the mark that you had originally made, along with your new one. You could also try cutting one of your pieces down, rescaling it by shrinking it and taking away parts that you don't prefer, or even just chopping it in half to see what it looks like when the scale is different. Some of those marks that you've painted will have had the size of the piece of paper in mind, but when you cut the piece of paper down, it can make for really interesting compositions. Now some of the marks will look a lot bigger in comparison to some of the others, and that can do some really nice things to the way that your work looks. You could take your piece, cut it into many, many pieces, maybe in half, maybe into 4, maybe into 3 strips, and then move them around to recompose the design. It's a cool way of taking something that looks very obvious and something that you've drawn that's easily identifiable and turning it into a painting or a piece that now is really abstract. You could take it apart, move them around, and you can take your time deciding which way looks good and come up with something that even after you've stuck it back down together with some masking tape, you can even paint over it, draw into it afterwards, and it makes for a really original background that you might not have done all on your own before. You can use pieces of paper to create a mini viewfinder to hover over some of the work that you've already made, to give yourself a new perspective and something original to redraw or to photograph, to look at how much you might like the abstraction or the change in scale. You can also do this by cutting a hole in a piece of paper and hovering it over some of your other pieces of work. Finally, you could take a pen and draw a lovely, great big outline onto one of your original drawings. You could pick one that's really sort of delicate, dainty, doesn't have any of that kind of graphic mark going on in it, and turn it into something that looks really illustrative and outlined. It's a very confident way of working, and as usual, you can always take a picture of what you were going to do first, and then it'll look different from the original that you create. And there we go. So many things that you can do to the work that you've made. But the important thing is you just experiment and don't be too precious about all the drawings. You can always go and do another one. If you want to get your hands on a pack that includes all of the materials for these directed drawing instructions, the instructions themselves, a little note from me on creative mindset, and a screen printed sketchbook, then head over to margategirl.com to grab one for yourself. You can also subscribe to the monthly Margate Girl Makes, where you get kits like this sent to you every single month for something fun to do for just £15. So now all you need to do is take yourself off somewhere comfy, sit down, have a cup of tea and a little look through all of the fantastic drawings that you've done today. Pick out some favourites, reflect on how well you've done, and feel very, very proud of yourself.